the extent to which disabled people are vulnerable during a period of crisis, but also the extent to which people with disabilities have been excluded from policy making. Now, today, on International Day of Persons with Disabilities, we'll be speaking to several people about how we can truly advance disability inclusion in Malaysia. Joining us first, we have Fariz Rani. He's a disability educationist and co-founder of the training agency Inspirize Consulting. Good evening, Fariz. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. Now, this year's theme for International Day of People with Disability is "Not all disabilities are visible." And I wanted to start our conversation with that. So now, how do we advance that conversation? How do we ensure that there is awareness and that there is inclusion that for disabilities that are not immediately visible?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this show. And the problem with society, they fail to recognize disability or impairment itself. It doesn't have to be a physical appearance or something that it's obvious to look at. There are a lot of types of other impairments which is invisible to our naked eyes that people are not aware about. There are intellectual impairment. There are disabilities or impairment in terms of learning. There are other types of impairment that you cannot actually see, or even a mental impairment also, one of the types of impairment that you cannot see obviously. Let me tell you about my personal story that happened to me many years ago. That I went to a store, actually newly opened store. It's a supplement store. I went with my friend. My friend obviously he's not a disabled person. So when we arrived at the store, the salesperson actually greeted my friend, saying thank you for coming for the opening of the new store, and asking about who am I to my friend, who is he, what happened to him. Why is he on wheelchair? But I actually was next to her when she was asking the question to my friend. Right. So when she shot one of the vitamin, whether I've taken that type of vitamin, so I immediately answered that I've taken that type of vitamin before. So she was surprised that I can talk. Oh, you can talk. That's kind of impairment or disability that you can see that people have this type of prejudice towards. So if you talk about hidden or invisible disabilities, people need to see whether it's in front of them. Then they can actually recognize that impairment. So this is what I'm trying to tell society, that they need to recognize and support, because they are also facing a lot of barriers in the society, despite of the unseen impairment that people cannot see. But they also need a lot of support in the national system, or even in the society, to be able to function or to participate in the society.
Fariz, I want to ask you, because your story is in very many ways kind of emblematic of the problem, right? People kind of assume that because you're in the wheelchair that you're also somebody who doesn't listen or hear or cannot perhaps not even see, that you might not
make decisions.
Yeah, indeed. It's an amazing, but it might not come from a bad place. It might come from a place where people, see disability as somehow that individual is not complete, and so they make assumptions, and maybe there's sympathy, there's pity, but there isn't empathy or understanding. And how do we get society there? And also, to what extent do people living with disabilities themselves internalize these kinds of negative stereotypes? They internalize this need to be a victim, or and so on and so forth.
The problem is, most of the time, the reason why it happens, because it comes from a good intention. Like you said just now, they don't want to say something that actually hurt our feelings, or they want to do something that actually make them feel bad, or or belittle disabled person like us. We didn't teach this in school, you know, about how to talk, how to communicate effectively with disabled persons. We don't have that syllabus in school. So the only feed that we have is from media and from movies and from television. If you remember Piramli movies, actually when you meet someone, because everybody watch Piramli movies, so when you meet someone who cannot actually hear properly, you shout at them. That's not the way when you talk to a disabled person. You don't have to shout to someone who cannot hear you. It won't make any difference. But when you see movies, they do like that. And actually, you have the subconsciously, we will actually do like that. So it happens. It happens in the society because of this media, wrong information from the media, from the television, from other sort of information that that they are not supposed to do. So as a disabled people or community, they have to do something about it. They cannot just let it happen just like that. They have to come out and speak up and do awareness program or speak up about it and tell people this is what you should do. Or if you meet me, you just talk to me. If I cannot answer you, then you'll know I need to be assisted in other ways, or maybe you have to write down. If I cannot speak, you can get a pencil or pen and write it down, and we can actually have a communication instead of shouting or trying to walk away from me.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Yes, I completely understand, and I hear what you're saying, but I do think it should be more than just coming from people with disabilities or disability inclusion activists. It should also stem perhaps from the government and in legislation and policy. You know, the United Nations Convention of the Right of Persons with Disabilities says nothing about us without us. And I'm wondering, Fariz, has there been this consultative culture from government, from policymakers, from government agencies to include people with disabilities, to make sure that there is inclusion and there is accessibility?
First, we are not there yet, but we should have this type of policies or laws or regulations that's actually enforced for this to happen in our country. But we also have a lot of educationists or disability educationists or educators which is certified and experienced educators in disability or inclusion, but they are underutilized by our government or even private sector. They are not main people or main cause for government agency to put in their calendar or training calendars for their staff or and also for public. So these experienced and certified disability inclusion educators or educationists, they can actually help government to spread out the message or to train people in Malaysia about this awareness. So it has to be done by government and by disability community themselves in order to make it happen.
Right, Fariz, you know, a recent public service announcement had a minister accompanied by somebody who seems to be, you know, sight impaired. But in the message about disability, the person with the minister does not actually speak. And that's been criticized by people on social media saying, well, you've just used somebody, an OKU, as a prop, you know, rather than actually, you know, respecting their personhood by allowing them to speak on an equal platform with the minister. What do you make of the government? I mean, do people in power truly understand what's going on? They seem to get the optics wrong sometimes.
To be honest, no. Most of the time, society or even minister or even anyone else, they have this good intention towards disabled community. They not necessarily they mean a bad thing by not talking to them, but actually they are worried that if they do this, it is the right thing to do. But I do believe that some people will use disabled people as a tool for them to get something from whatever they are actually doing at that time. So, but most of the time, I would agree that this is my personal opinion. That most of the time, that because of the awareness that they are not aware of what are the right things to do or what are the right things to say. They only see someone that needs to be taken care of. For instance, for myself, every time people meet me, they will actually talk really soft, really low tone to me. Hi, Fariz, how are you? I'm an adult. You should talk like adult tone to me. But immediately people would do that type of response to me due to that the limitation of knowledge they have towards disabled community.
Right. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight and helping us understand your position better. We appreciate your time, Fariz. Now, we're going to take a quick break here on Consider This, but we will be back with more, so stay tuned.
Perang COVID-19 masih belum berakhir. Dalam kita berusaha memutuskan rantaian wabak ini, kita jangan terpedaya dengan virus maklumat palsu. Simak fakta melalui www.astroawani.com atau aplikasi Astro Awani. Teruskan berdisiplin, ratakan lengkungan pandemik ini.
The third wave of COVID-19 has taken us by storm. There's no room to take anything lightly. Everyone must follow all the steps to stop the spread of COVID-19. Social distancing, face mask, follow these steps, this SOP with the utmost discipline. Together, we can flatten the curve.
Perang COVID-19 tetap belum berakhir. Pastikan setiap langkah berjaga-jaga diamalkan, dari kebersihan tangan, pemakaian pelitup muka, penjarakan fizikal. Kesemuanya amat penting untuk pastikan pandemik ini dibendung.
Fokus kita sekarang adalah gelombang ketiga. Elakkan 3M.
Hi, you're watching Consider This. I'm Melisa Idria. With me is SharaadKuttan as we observe the International Day of Persons with Disabilities today, Thursday, the 3rd of December. Faiz Shuhaimi is the president of the Malaysian Disability Youth Council. He's also an exco on the Malaysian Youth Council. Good evening, Faiz. Can you tell us, start the conversation perhaps telling us a little bit about what the Malaysian Disability Youth Council champions when it comes to disability inclusion?
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Thank you, Astro AWANI, for inviting me for this program. So basically, it's the main initiative of Malaysian Youth Council, Disabled Youth Council. We have three main components. First, to the empowerment for youth with disability. We need to empower youth with disability with the skill, with the education, with the knowledge. And second, the right to voice out. So basically, as the artist youth organization, the prime function of youth organization is to represent a specific group of people, to represent their voices to the stakeholder and the main community in the country. So the same thing for people with disability, especially on the youth. So we need to give them the right to voice out their needs. And the last one, the leadership training, as the people say that youth today are the leaders for tomorrow. So here, the Disabled Youth Council serves as a platform to provide the leadership training and advocacy work for youth with disability to engage with various stakeholders, especially with the Malaysian government and the NGO and the CSO.
Faiz, thanks for outlining what might be specific to the youth issue, which is developing new leaders. But beyond that, what is specific to young people living with disabilities? What is different for the young as opposed to those other age categories?
Again, sorry.
What would be specific to young people living with disabilities? What is it that they have to face that perhaps older individuals living with disabilities don't have to face?
Okay, basically what we need is a call for action. The Disabled Youth Council has actually been established as a call for action to gather people from different type of disability to engage. So this is time for the disabled youth itself to raise up and to be taken part in the organization. And of course, there is several ways for us to include people with disability. The first, through the volunteerism. But however, the volunteerism is not. Previously, we might say that maybe we can just focus on giving charity to people with disability in the volunteerism. But somehow, I believe that, and basically, Disabled Youth Council believe that people with disability also could empower others by giving charities, by giving volunteerism. First. Right. Second, on the participation on the decision making. Through Malaysian Youth Council, the Disabled Youth Council has been given the opportunity to raise up on several issues with the ministries. For example, during our discussion with the Yang Berhormat Menteri Sport, Youth and Sport, YB Rizal, American. So we arrived about the issues of employment among youth. So we need to address more issues, and these chances give more people with disability the right to involve. And at the same time, it also gives the additional remarks to the people with disability that when they are being taken into consideration, we are then given a platform or chances. So we have the right on the platform to speak out of what is the need for people with disability.
Well, Faiz, just before we spoke to you, we had Fariz Rani, a disability educationist, on the show, and he raised the issue of media representation and popular culture in Malaysia. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Are there positive images that you've observed, images of persons with disabilities in mainstream media, or is it almost always the representation is one of weakness, one of sympathy or pity? What are your opinions on this?
So about sorry.
Yes. Are you seeing positive images of people with disabilities in mainstream media today?
Yes. So basically, there's a lot of positive images about people with disability. As we can see, our current Bernama chairman is our Senator Rasadi Barazi. It was already one of the people of PWD that has been appointed into such high position and important position in our organization. But there are also a lot of positive story about the success of people with disability being portrayed, being highlighted in our media. So basically, in terms of media, they are being highlighted about the success story of people with disability. But somehow, on the another side of the coin, it might be lead to the ableism, or we call it as inspirational porn. We only see people with disabilities as an object. As we portray that object, regardless of their disability, they're able to overcome the hardship, they're able to achieve the success in either in education or whatever they're doing in the areas. So this kind of course, in some way, it could seem as a positive image. But in another way, we should educate the public about to appreciate the effort that has given by the people with disability, not we just measure their abilities based on their part of type of physical disability. For example, if that particular people with disability are success in certain stories or in certain areas, just we can and then we compare with the other people without disability. So we keep highlighting their inability or their physical impairment as a motivation for us. But it is something not healthy. For a positive image of PW, the mainstream media, we should be focused on appreciating the effort of PWDs, and at the same time, it serves as a medium to portray to the people and the citizen that if the people with disability are given chances and platform, they are able to perform just like others, as long as there is a suitable accommodation has been given to them.
Faiz, very quick question for you. What would you like to see happen in the next year in terms of an advancement on disability inclusion? What one thing, low-hanging fruit, government can do or society can do for people living with disabilities?
First of all, maybe during the current, I hope that after the post-COVID situation, the first, I hope that there is an increase of awareness. If we can say that most of people with disability have been discriminated, being alienated with the various barriers, but somehow the same situation actually been faced by all of us currently. All of us are being locked down in the homes, in the houses, so we cannot go to the public places and do our daily course. Just actually, this situation actually almost similar with the people with disability. At the moment, they are not the people with disability. They are not given access to travel. Access, maybe they have the barriers to travel from one places to another places. Actually, it is the same thing, just like what we face right now at the moment. But our situation, maybe during the lockdown process or the COVID process, maybe in the meantime, inshallah, it will be gone.
Right.
The COVID situation might be better. But the issues that faced by people with disability, their discrimination, their inaccessibility to the other public transport or accessibility to education are being faced all over the years, throughout the entire year. So the first thing is awareness. I hope that after the post-COVID and maybe next year, the awareness will be much more better.
Right.
And second part is the inclusion. We hope that more people without disability able to welcoming and include people with disability, regardless their activities, and then the most important part actually, the two stakeholders, the government, the GSO, the NGOs, somehow need to ensure that they receive the feedback from people with disability before they're doing anything.
Sure. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. You're absolutely right that we do need to build back better into a more disability-inclusive society. Thank you for your time tonight. Another quick break on Consider This. We'll be back with more.
Perang COVID-19 masih belum berakhir. Dalam kita berusaha memutuskan rantaian wabak ini, kita jangan terpedaya dengan virus maklumat palsu. Simak fakta melalui www.astroawani.com atau aplikasi Astro Awani. Teruskan berdisiplin, ratakan lengkungan pandemik ini.
The third wave of COVID-19 has taken us by storm. There's no room to take anything lightly. Everyone must follow all the steps to stop the spread of COVID-19. Social distancing, face masks, follow these steps, this SOP with the utmost discipline. Together, we can flatten the curve.
Perang COVID-19 tetap belum berakhir. Pastikan setiap langkah berjaga-jaga diamalkan, dari kebersihan tangan, pemakaian pelitup muka, penjarakan fizikal. Kesemuanya amat penting untuk pastikan pandemik ini dibendung.
Fokus kita sekarang adalah gelombang ketiga. Elakkan 3S, iaitu kawasan yang sesak, sempit dan juga bersembang pada jarak yang dekat. Berdisiplinlah kerana virus ini tidak mengira darjat, umur mahupun latar belakang anda. Tiada masa untuk kita berlengah lagi.
Kita sekarang telah memasuki gelombang ketiga COVID-19. Setiap langkah pencegahan perlu diamalkan dengan penuh tanggungjawab dan disiplin. Kita mampu meratakan lengkung pandemik ini. Semuanya di tangan kita bersama.
We've done great so far, but the fight is far from over. We need to be vigilant to keep ourselves and others safe. Wear a mask, wash your hands, and when you're out, keep a safe distance. In fighting this virus, we can't relax, so don't be lax.
The war on COVID-19 is not over. We should not take this lightly. Let us ensure all steps are taken to avoid the spread of the virus, be it social distancing, hand hygiene, and wearing of
Hi, Thank you so much for staying with Sharad and I on Consider This. Let's continue our look at how we can truly advance disability inclusion in Malaysia. Joining us on the line now, we have Bathmavathi Krishnan, a former Senator of Dewan Negara. Good evening, Bathma. Thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight. Now, I'm just wondering your opinion as to whether persons with disabilities have been included in the public health response to COVID-19. And what would you want to see in an inclusive approach to this public health crisis?
Yeah, of course. I would like to see persons with disabilities, leaders, organizations to be included in the planning services and also in the dissemination of information and all the help to persons with disabilities. Okay? We often hear a lot of comments saying that, oh, kita ditinggalkan, we are left behind here, there, and everywhere. Okay. The KKM, Kementerian Kesihatan, the DG, every day says that the vulnerable group must be looked after, i.e. elderly and also persons with disabilities. And just would like to bring to the fore that we had a very important, powerful National Council on Disability, which is under the Ministry of KPWKM, right? And under the KPWKM, there is also a representative from MOH, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, who are present there. So it is the role of the MOH rep to find out what are the areas, even up to clinic kesihatan and the program that they have to reach out to the public, and especially seek out the persons with disabilities, must be there. It must be clearly stated. Okay, what we always hear is SOP this, SOP that, to wash their hands, don't touch, and then physical contact, physical distancing and all that. So those are the standard cleanliness SOPs. But what about the process in reaching out to the neglected, the vulnerable, who are out there?
But do you think it's a question of resources? Is it that government has not allocated sufficient resources to do the outreach that you say is kind of failing?
We saw today in the news that there is a huge something billion allocated for COVID-19. Okay, can't some of the money be used for the vulnerable group? Priority comes, or are we not priority? So today we had 11 deaths. Among the 11 deaths, how many elderly? Okay, and then from time to time we know that the vulnerable group, those with disabilities, there are some who are severely disabled, who depend on gadgets, on breathing apparatus to live. So I don't know how it can escape the sight and the knowledge of KKM. So I urge our DG to also bring up, I hope the media will question him tomorrow about what are the specific help that is out there, outreach. Even the Kementerian Wanita has outreach program, to go and visit people. Even NADMA, NADMA emergency, and the MOH, JKM has got a district level.
Okay.
Even
I wanted to ask you, Bathma, during your tenure as Senator, I'm wondering whether you saw...
My 6 years. My 6 years, dear. 6 years.
So did you see, a genuinely consultative nature, a genuinely collaborative nature between government agencies to create disability inclusion in policy making and also legislation?
Yes, inclusion in the policy making, they have subcommittees, under the National Council of Disabled that I told you about, and under that they have a Jawatan Kuasa Kecil, subcommittee on education, subcommittee on jobs, on transport, on accessibility, and these are the people, these are the reps. The committee goes to the Kementerian to attend the meetings and give their input. Okay, but once the input is given, the solution is the one. It's a big headache and a big question mark, because everybody tends to point back to KPWKM, ini kerja KPWKM. Each of the Kementerian has duty towards persons with disabilities as well. So the engagement, and I would also like to bring the transportation, there was danger where blind people were falling off the monorail, station in Brickfield. Would you remember?
Yeah.
About 13 over people fell, and there was no immediate action. But when I brought up in the parliament twice, the second time I mentioned the company that was involved, which did not, repair and did not close the gate when the blind people were going. Then, I was called out, and they said, this year, sorry?
Yes, so unfortunately we're out of time, and I do want to thank you for speaking with us and raising these really important issues. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on the show tonight. That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm SharaadKuttan, signing off for the evening.
Thank you so much for watching, and good night.